So we've seen costs, but now let's look at revenue. Let's begin by looking at total revenue. The total revenue that a firm earns or obtains is simply calculated by the price of the product that it's selling times the quantity that it produces and sells. If the firm is a price taker, then we say that it simply accepts whatever the market price is, and that market price for the firm is fixed. That is, even if the firm increases or decreases its output and the quantity it sells, the price that it sells that output at doesn't change. If, on the other hand, the firm is a price maker, then we can say that the firm can change the price that it charges, but we have to remember that the law of demand will apply. So, if the firm wants to sell more, it will have to reduce its price. And if the firm sells less, it can charge a higher price. This is what the law of demand tells us. For now, let's assume we're dealing with a price taker. So the price of the product that the firm is selling is fixed. So here's a table with for our price-taking firm. So it can increase the quantities that it produces and sells, but the price that it sells its output at remains constant at $350 each. How do we calculate total revenue? Simply price sold times the quantity that it sells it at. So 0 times, obviously that's 0. At the price of $350, it produces and sells 1 unit. That would be total revenue of $350, and so on. If it produces and sells 2, it sells them at $350, that's $700 revenue, and so on. As we can see, the total revenue rises as the amount produced and sold increases. So if we graph it, we see we've got this straight line for a total revenue curve. Total revenue increases in a linear fashion. So far, so good. What if the price of the product that is being sold by this firm were to change? Let's say the price falls from $350 each to $270 each. Well, now we'd have to recalculate the total revenue that the firm would be earning at each level of output. So again, it's the total output produced and sold times the new price of $270. We calculate them, and we've got a new set of data for the total revenue earned by the firm. If we graph that, we would see that we would have a different total revenue curve, which would be lower than the original total revenue curve when the price was $350. We can see that they start at the same point. Of course, if the firm produces 0 and sells 0, then the total revenue is 0. But now, as it produces and sells more, it will generate less revenue than at $350 because it's selling at a lower price. But again, it's a linear total revenue curve because the price is fixed. What if we now assume we're dealing with a price maker? What if the firm can change the price that it sells its output at? So here we have the price column showing the prices that the firm is able to charge. This is the maximum prices that the firm is willing and is able to charge at these different prices. These are the highest prices consumers are willing to pay. So for the first unit, the consumers are willing to pay $435. The firm charged $450, it could sell no units. And so on. So we can calculate the total revenue now. Again, it's the price times the quantity produced and sold. But now we can notice that the price is falling as the firm produces and sells more, as per the law of demand. Right? And there we've got our total revenue column. Now what we're going to see is that this total revenue column, when we graph it, means that the total revenue curve will now have a more interesting shape to it. There, when we graph that data, we can see that the total revenue rises, but it reaches a peak, and thereafter total revenue starts to fall. If we went back to the original graph, we can see that price is rising. Total revenue is rising until it reaches a peak at rats. So if the column kept going, we could see eventually the total revenue would fall. See, here we are. The graph has gone beyond 15. So after 15, you can see that the total revenue starts to fall. All right, but when the price, the point is that when the firm is a price maker, the law of demand applies, and when the law of demand applies, as price falls, the quantity demanded increases and the quantity sold increases, but it will reach a point at which the total revenue will cease to rise and will start to fall. And this is because the impact of the falling price starts to be greater than the increase in the quantity of goods sold. So the revenue falls eventually.